Okay. Today we're going to be talking about KISS. Keep it simple, silly. These are questions that usually do not have questions attached to them. They just have 4 answers to choose from. And what we're going to do is look at our cheat sheet checklist, and you see this as the number, the last one to look for. What we want to make sure is we don't see signs of any other category before we go to the KISS concept, because if it is one of these categories, it can't be KISS. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be starting with KISS because it can account for almost 25% of the entire test. So we want to make sure we get as many of these correct as possible. We'll start with the first one. Which choice most effectively combines the 2 sentences at the underlined portion? We got 1 short one and 3 long ones. What we want to do is cross out this, and we want to stick in the shortest one. Typically, the ice sheet begins to show evidence of thawing in late summer, following several weeks of higher temperatures. Sounds good? If it sounds good, that is the correct answer. Okay. Going down to number 2, itself would be our shortest choice. Okay, so we want to cross out this. The pattern box observed in 2012 may repeat itself with harmful effects on the Arctic ecosystem. Does that sound good? Some people like to choose the A portion, and it can't be because we got repeat and again together. So we would cross that one out. Some people like to choose itself possibly, and possibly and may are the same thing. So we're going to get rid of those 2. This one's just too many words. So the only possible choice would be that one right there. Okay. Going down to the third one. We have, again, just like this, we have 1 short one and 3 long ones. We're going to put the short one in, the as is. So we got in broad terms, comma, philosophy is that. But more pragmatically, comma, the discipline encourages. Those 2 are the most alike, and they stay consistent in the pattern, and it is the shortest one, so it would be this one right here. See, these all say the same thing, just in a different way. Okay. The fourth one, when we see the words delete the underlined portion, we want to start with that one. Okay. So if we go like this, that these skills are transferred across professions makes them especially beneficial to 21st century students. Does that sound good to your ear? If it sounds good to your ear, that's most likely the answer. A lot of people like to stick in that, but we can't have that and that in the same sentence. It would sound too much. That these skills are transferred across professions, that makes them, you can't have that twice. Now, another way to do this, because that and which are sister words, we could cover up this one and say these skills are transferred across professions, which makes them especially beneficial to 21st century students. That sounds okay. Or cover it up and say that these skills are transferred across professions, makes them especially beneficial to 21st century students. Since we can get rid of that, it's going to be delete. If you're ever questioning whether it's going to be delete or not, push delete. Delete is going to be the right answer 5 of 6 times on the test. Okay, going to the next one. As you can see, there's a semicolon. In general terms, the ACT and SAT don't care for a semicolon. A semicolon can be seen on your reference sheet, and a semicolon is usually not the answer. Okay. And that is just a dot with a comma underneath it. A semicolon is basically when 2 complete sentences are smashed together and split by a semicolon. So essentially, a semicolon and a period is considered the same thing. So if you see a semicolon and period as an answer option, you can cross those 2 out as nonsense answers. For this type, we're going to scratch this off. You can't have a colon. We're going to be learning about colons under the colon worksheet. So for right now, it won't be a colon because you can't have the word and following a colon. So we know that that's wrong. Okay. And why would you have a comma and comma? Too much punctuation. Remember, KISS is keep it simple, silly. Least amount of words, least amount of punctuation. So we're going to go ahead and cross that out and it'll be the scientist. Okay? Okay, so going on to number 6, what we have to remember is we always have to have a comma before a quote. Okay, so automatically we can get rid of 2 nonsense answers, being A with no comma before the quote and D with no comma before the quote. Okay, then we also have to acknowledge you cannot have a that and a comma together. A that comma or a comma that. That is illegal because that takes the place of a comma. So you can't hesitate. So it should be, Tammy Hall was so powerful and corrupt that the New York Times commented, and then go on with the quote. So it should be C. Okay. Next one. All right. So we're seeing that this is a transition. If a sentence starts with a transition, because, so, all these transitions up here, however, moreover, but, etc., those are all transitions. If it starts with a transition or a verb, which is an action word, or a pronoun, which is he, she, they, all these up here, those are all pronouns, he, she, they, it, etc. If the sentence starts with that, you have to go to the comma, and the very next word has to be the subject, okay? So what they did was they started with a transition, they went to the comments, they had another transition. Those are too many transitions. So we're gonna cross out this as nonsense because so is a transition and so is therefore. So now it's between this one and this one. And since we know if it starts with a transition, you've gotta go to the comma and the very next word has to be a subject, we know it has to be B. Then we got for the next one, we've got lots of words here. Soon got worn off quickly. Too many of the same thing. And also promptly, they are all too many words. So what we're going to do is just put wore. The novelty of this comfortable work from home life, however, wore off quickly. That sounds good. So we're going to just go with the shortest one. Okay, so the next one, we can see that the number 9 is equal to the same one here. Which choice most effectively combines the sentence underlined portion? It was 1 short one, 3 long ones. You picked the short one. Which choice most effectively combines the sentence in the underlined portion? 1 short one, 3 long ones. Let's stick the short one in and try it out. Often do better than students from other majors in both verbal reasoning and analytical writing as measured by standardized test scores. Sounds good? That's the answer. Okay. On the next one, we have the share of library materials. So let's go with the shortest one. This is 5 words. This is 4 words. That's 3 words. This is 2 words. Let's go for circulation. So increasing steadily. In 2010, at least 18.5 million ebooks were available for circulation. That sounds good? That's the correct answer. Okay. The next one, here's another transition. When we have a transition, we got to go to the comma. Cross out the very next word has to be the subject. The subject is who or what the sentence is about. So we got to get rid of those extra words. Any of those extra words won't work, so we have to delete the underlined portion. Okay, so the next one, we see a delete. So let's see if we can just delete it. When a plant in Seattle, Washington was redesigned for natural light, the company was able to enjoy annual electricity cost reductions of $500,000. Okay, and we would put a period there and cross out that. That makes sense because each year, every year, and per year all mean annual. Okay, so if you get two answers that mean the same thing, in this case, there's 3 things that mean the same thing. They technically can be crossed out, so it would be delete. Okay, the next one, we've got response to the advertisement. It looks like this one is the shortest. And when you have lots of options, like this is a no question, and all the options have quite a few words, I always start with the shortest one because it wouldn't be the plural singular question because we don't see magic words. It doesn't have a dash in the answer, so it's not a descriptive clause. There's no colons involved, and it's not a verb tense question. So what I have to assume is it's probably going to be a KISS question, so I always go with the shortest one. So in this case, I'm just going to cut this out. Response to the advertisement was overwhelming, and Harvey soon replaced the male servers at his restaurants with women. That sounds fine. Now, sometimes you want to add in even tremendous. It's a little redundant because we already know what overwhelming means, tremendous. So we're going to go with B. Okay, so the next one, we see a magic semicolon. We don't want a semicolon, so we're going to cross that out. Okay. And it won't, we see a colon, so we got to ask the question, does it state or list something? Well, here's our clue. Living is a verb. Okay, living is a verb. Remember what we said over here, where if we have a transaction, a verb, or a pronoun, we got to go to the comma. The very next word is going to be the subject. So in this case, we start with living, we got to have a comma here, and then the very next word is going to be the subject of who we're talking to. So that has to be a comma. And we don't want to stick an extra word in there, do we? We want to keep it simple. So it's going to be this one. Okay, so the next one is MCP works by limiting a fruit's production of ethane. It is. Well, okay, so the comma, we don't want to do that. We see the delete. Let's just get rid of it and let's read it. MCP works by limiting a fruit's production of ethane, a chemical that causes fruit to ripen and eventually rot. That's what we want to do. Because the comma takes the place of all it is being that is. So we can just get rid of all those words because we used a comma for that. Okay. So the next one is, we've got four words, 5 words, 3 words, 3 words. Okay, so initiate their progression. That sounds awfully fancy. Let's go simple. Begin their careers. A basic understanding of computer programming is essential. In fact, many designers begin their careers as programmers. Initially begin their pursuits. That's way too fancy. Let's not be fancy here. Start to begin their work. That doesn't even make sense. Initiate their progression. That's way too fancy. Begin their careers. Okay. So the next one here, remember when I said, if you have a semicolon and a period, they mean the same thing because a semicolon, all it is 2 complete sentences smashed together and separated by a semicolon. So if you have a period and a semicolon, those are your 2 nonsense answers. And we got from Michael D'Angelo's. Okay, so from Michael D'Angelo's David to Vincent van Gogh's series of self-portraits to Grant Wood's iconic image of a farming couple in American Gothic. Wow, they haven't said anything, have they? They haven't said you got to go to that comma. And the very next word is works by human artists, okay? So it can't be, you can't have a period there because it's not a complete sentence. So you've got to go with a comma. It's a horrible run-on sentence, but it has to be a sentence, or it has to be a comma. Okay.
Now go.
Okay, so for the final page, we are going to this one. This is a transition. So we got to go to the comma. The very next words have to be the subject, video game design. So that would have to be the correct one because the choice is not the subject of the sentence. You is not the subject of the sentence, and choosing is not. Although demanding and deadline driven. So what is demanding and deadline driven? Video game design is. So that's the correct answer. Okay, so here is an example of an apostrophe S. An apostrophe S is singular, taking possession of the very next word. It can never be broken up by punctuation. That is on your reference sheet right up here. An apostrophe S can never be followed by punctuation. Okay? So in that case, we can get rid of our 2 nonsense answers, anything that has an apostrophe S and a comma. And this is very common to have an apostrophe S and a comma as your 2 nonsense answers. Okay, and then This is another common thing. You have the title or in a describer of George, so painter George, you can't break that up with punctuation. That's illegal. So if it was author Sam or tutor Miss Martin, it can't be broken up with that comma. It has to just be all no commas. So it has to be that one. So that answer is D. Okay. Then we have, it has long known that sea otters living along the west coast of North America help keep kelp forests in their habitats healthy and vital. Okay, so it looks like we've got a lot of words. We got some commas here. This would be long, this would be long, and this one's longer than this one with a comma and they. We don't have to refer to that because it just says right here, sea otters. We don't have to stick a comma in there and put a pronoun. We just can keep with the shortest one. That being right here. Okay, so the next one is, oh, here's that. Look at comma that. Can you use a comma that? You cannot use a comma and a that together. So we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to get rid of this. And remember the dash is indicating, you'll learn about this on the next one under descriptive clauses. The dash is indicating a descriptive clause or a non-essential clause. We don't need that, so let's just do suggest that. So Chris Wilmers and James Estes suggest that kelp forests protected by sea otters can absorb as much. That sounds just fine. So we're going to go with that one. All right, and then this one, carbon dioxide dioxide from the atmosphere as those where sea urchins are allowed to devour the kelp. Devour. Do you devour pizza when you're starving, or do you dispatch pizza when you're starving, or do you overindulge on pizza when you're starving, or you dispose of pizza? You devour pizza, so it should be that one right there. That one sort of slipped in. That's actually a vocab, but somehow it got slipped into my KISS worksheet, so that's okay. I just told you what it is. Okay, the next one, while they await for service. You don't have to say they. That's too many words. And how often do you await service? I personally don't await service, so that's way too fancy. And you don't have to say they waited. How about just while waiting for service, comma, patrons. There's that subject, right? Because you started with that transition. It's very common on the ACT. You got to get used to seeing a transition to start. You got to go to that comma. The very next word is going to be subject. That's going to come in handy during the singular plural worksheet. Okay, so then on the last one, we have, though the concept remained a local trend at first, international repair cafes, all affiliated with the Dutch Repair Cafe via its website, have since arisen in France, Germany, and South America, the United States, and other countries, period. After a list, you don't add anything else at the end. So that would be, and in addition, and likewise, that's silly use of transition. So we're going to cross that one out, that one. Those are your two nonsense. And on top of that, no, you don't. That's just extra words.